there are calls to speed up the vaccine rollout for people most at risk. Australia's more than 6,000 disability homes were to be among the first to receive the vaccinations under Phase 1A of the plan.
We've done only a very small number of those, only about 100 of them.
Well, was that a couple of hundred people? Was that a couple of hundred clinics out of the 6,000 clinics, which is still a very small percentage? Now, two possibilities for that incredibly low number. One is the legal guardians of the disabled have read what's going on and made an informed decision and said no to consent. And the second, and this is a real possibility, is that they rolled out the plan, 1, 1A, 1B, 2, whatever it is, and included these people at the front, but they never intended on jabbing them and didn't actually supply them with the jabs because they didn't want to waste jabs designed to make people disabled on people who are already disabled, and if those disabilities happen to be different, not telegraphing the extra effects that it's had when really they're after the young people, young and healthy people.
And while the New South Wales government dithers over setting up mass vaccination centres, Victoria is up and running. The state's first 3 super clinics open today. The mass vaccination centres have the capability of administering up to 60,000 doses a week. But it wasn't the rush they'd hoped for. Dozens, not hundreds, lining up for a jab.
So they're opening up these mass vaccination hubs, 3 already in Victoria. So the jabs must be here. Why haven't they been delivered to all of those disability homes? Because I think point 2 that I made is probably true. Now, if they can't get people who have retired and have got time on their hands to get down there, I expected a couple of hundred to get about a dozen. So they're looking at less than 10%, probably about 5% of the number they were hoping for. How are they going to get young people who have no chance of being virtually sick from this thing and who have very busy lives of turning up to these mass vaccination hubs without some kind of coercion that we know is coming?
First, there was the Terminator.
I'll be back.
Now Australia has the vaccinator. He's Navy Commander Eric Young, the military man tasked with rescuing the nation's jab rollout and saving us from the pandemic. There he is there, a real man. So no pressure.
So they introduced this guy, certainly on this Today Show, this magazine-style program in the morning here in Australia, as some kind of equivalent to a Hollywood character. Quite harmless, nothing to worry about. Now, he's supposed to only be involved in logistics. Now, if that was the case, wouldn't they just call in some industry experts, say someone from toll transport, someone like that? How do you move stuff around efficiently? We're having trouble with it. Or someone from UBS, flying this stuff in. We've got a problem. They haven't mentioned exactly what the logistics problems are. They just said they haven't turned up at those 6,000 disability centres. So, toll transport or Lindsay Fox, maybe he could come on board as one of the advisors. I mean, how's this guy going to know more than them about logistics? Well, of course he doesn't. And as mentioned before, and we all pretty much knew that anyway, he's there to be used under the Defence Amendment Act to coordinate the jabbing of people by military and foreigners under immunity from civil and criminal prosecution. That's what this guy is for. No mention of that on any news. Oh, the vaccinator. They even had that on the front page of the Telegraph. That's how they're trying to, first of all, make out like this guy isn't a problem for anybody, and then making out like he's in the logistics, which he isn't.
Matt, hard to fire a gun without bullets, though, isn't it?
So they said earlier that they had at least a couple of hundred jabs ready in one day that nobody turned up for. So the logistics part of that is perfectly fine. Now, how is this guy meant to rectify that situation and have, instead of dozens, have a couple of hundred of over 70s turn up? Well, he can't without, as Carl just said, any bullets. But what bullet is he going to have to use down the track? Well, if they haven't already, they're going to write up an order under that Defence Act through the Minister, through the Chief of the Defence Force, and then onto this character. Now, this vaccinator, this Hollywood-style character that they have presented to us, that's how they're presenting him, he's actually been now part of the health department. So if the health, depending on his appointment and the instrument they've used to appoint him, he could have the same powers as one of the health officers. So he could write up the actual orders that all these health orders health officers have been writing up masks and quarantine and lockdown. If he's part of the health department, they could give him, by legislative instrument and appointment, the power to make the same orders as them, and he could make one to the defence forces and the foreign forces and police to go and jab people. And of course, remember that he's the exact rank, Navy Commodore, under the legislation to be able to do that.
Well, Carl, this is a logistical exercise now. It shouldn't be a political exercise. We've just got to get the vaccine rolled out as quickly as possible. And I think someone with his experience is good at logistics.
Most of the contracts for the military, for civilian contracts, are to outsource things like logistics. These guys that are in the military, if you're a signalman, well, that's what you do. They only employ, they started that back in the 80s, where they started to outsource everything that wasn't core to civilian contractors. That includes logistics. This guy has absolutely no idea on logistics compared to anyone that's in the industry itself. He would have no clue. What he does have is a power of legislation, and he does know how to give orders.
The problem is that the Health Minister, Greg Hunt's trumpeting around like there's been some sort of monumental achievement. There are 38 million vaccines to go, and we don't have the supply.
We will get the supply though, Carl. We will get the supply.
So supply really was the issue, which it isn't. People just not turning up is the issue, but let's just take them at their word. This guy's got nothing to do with that. He can't help with that at all. Before I finish, do a quick jump back to the jab story.
Of AstraZeneca, including Victoria's Chief Health Officer.
Yeah, I'm sure whatever he's getting is what they've got lined up for everyone else.
The Prime Minister receiving his Pfizer jab at the Holy Family Residential Services Care Centre in Western Sydney. Remember that?
Well, I'm not sure many people would remember that, Carl. ScoMo getting his jab at the Holy Family Services Centre in Western Sydney, which is located at, as we have a look at the location on the map, at 116 to 132 Quakers Road, Marion.
You all thought there'd be tax.
Because he was ScoMo supposedly getting the jab, and I've highlighted at the bottom there, and you can see in the background on a sign above ScoMo's head, it was apparently supposed to have happened at the Castle Hill Medical Centre, which is in Castle Hill, not Marion. So you might perhaps think that Castle Hill Medical Centre has a contract with Holy Family Services, but no, it says down at the bottom, at the Castle Hill Medical Centre, and in the background, why would they have their sign up if it was at Holy Family Services? Now, this is where they revisit stuff that they've said, and it becomes a bit discombobulating, a bit sort of starts to throw a fog around it. Well, where was he? Well, did he get it? This is what they do. Now, this was a few months ago now. He was meant to have had his second jab, but they didn't I didn't see it, show any vision of that. And all you need is one alibi, so you can, even if it's a ridiculous argument, the same people at Castle Medical Centre that go there say, well, I was there on Sunday. Oh, I didn't see him. Was he there? Oh, no, it was misreported. It was actually over at Holy Family Services. Holy Family Services, well, he wasn't here. What day was that again? Oh, maybe they misreported it was back at Castle Hill. I mean, surely there should be no doubt as to where he got jabbed. The Prime Minister, the leader of the country. Anyway, the big announcement today after the National Cabinet, and I'll certainly be listening for clues if they don't state it outright, just where and when they're going to insert this guy as timing as best I can, and the way they're going to do it. So that way I can just finalise this I do not consent to cover contingencies that they have with using this guy, because this is the biggest danger now. And as I've mentioned before, I just gave it just very, very quickly, is that under our electoral system, we vote these guys in off, unbinding political promises that are mostly bullshit. Well, they're all bullshit. And they then go and make laws, and they have our implied consent for those laws. So according to them, they had our implied consent for bringing in the law that gives this guy his powers. So anything that he does, they've got our implied consent for. And even if we, at the time, say we don't consent to the jab, to the order that he's made, we need to also go back and not consent to the actual legislation. And that's what I'm going to include. So it goes right back to no matter what this guy does, he doesn't have our consent, and we're going to let them know that. So anyway, all right, so what's for the news tonight? I'll check up on any updates and work out what I can from that and just finalise this letter, and we'll just get it out. All right, that's it for this one.